Welcome into Surviving Paradise, the podcast that takes a sometimes serious, oftentimes humorous look at the claim by Jehovah's Witnesses and the 9 guys at the top that they are living in a modern-day spiritual paradise. I'm your host, Stacy Bauman, former elder, ministerial servant, and a little guy raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses in the 70s and 80s. Just a warning, we try to have some fun here, try to heal, provide a safe place for anything and everything. There's sarcasm, humor, sometimes some tears, but it's never meant to offend. I want to start by saying I'm inspired by a few of the private notes I've received from some great people that watch this show or listen to this show. I guess you watch it on YouTube. There's not much to see. But I want to start with a confession. And here it is. There are times that it's really hard to talk about this stuff. There are times I turn on this microphone and I want to turn it off. The absurdity and stupidity that comes out of New York and is disseminated and told to us that it's food at the proper time is sometimes so insulting and just so exhausting, if I'm being honest, that I find myself wanting to just hit record, turn on the microphone and say, they're still being stupid, they're still liars, it's still a cult. Turn the microphone off at that point, walk away, take a hike or have a glass of wine, read a book. It just gets so incredibly stupid and exhausting at times. And it made me think this week after getting a few notes that I really want to encourage those that are on the journey out or have just left to take time to decompress. I think that's very important. For me personally, I've been out 15 years. And I also want to encourage people to seek a good therapist to talk through this stuff. Your idea of talk therapy might have been with congregation elders, and we know that's not very good. But there are actually people that are ex-Jehovah's Witness therapists now. I hope some of them may listen if they're entertained or want to be here. Love that. But how amazing is that they left this organization and became a therapist with a specific niche for helping ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. I encourage people to seek that out. But I got to tell you, at times, I just want to call these guys names, laugh at them, and turn off the microphone. And I got to tell you, it's been that way for a couple weeks. The absurdity coming out of New York seems to know no bounds, as this religion in its effort to rebrand has become so incredibly insulting and so incredibly juvenile and stupid that it just feels like an insult at times. I got it out of the way. It's off my chest. There it is. At times, it is hard to talk about this. And if that comes through, please note that I am sorry for that. It's just human nature. Getting that off my chest, with all of that said, who wants to take a closer look at the 2024 September episode of JW Broadcasting with me? Just when you think they can't say something more absurd than last month, or the last convention, or the last meeting, or the last annual meeting, they roll out another king with a new set of claims and messages that we're told come from heaven, all under the umbrella of food at the proper time. And to be honest, I find myself every month on pins and needles. What more is going to happen in 2024? What new light is coming down? What are they going to allow Jehovah's Witnesses to do next? Can I get a tattoo yet? Which king will get the spotlight this month? There's always so much to look forward to with these guys. That's sarcasm, not really. Every one of these episodes highlights how insane and how intellectually insulting these guys have become. And in the very least, I guess it gives us a deeper look behind the curtain of the governing body. And I got to tell you, if you're here for the duration of this episode, this month doesn't disappoint. Although I got to admit, the emotions, well, there's a wide range of them. This month's episode of JW Broadcasting is hosted by future King Jeffrey Winder, who covers a variety of subjects all under one theme. It even includes a music video. that MTV apparently does not have in rotation. Maybe it's on VH1. Maybe I just exposed how old I am. I don't even know if those channels exist anymore. Hey, maybe it's on TikTok. There you go. Never mind. As I always do, I want to encourage everyone to go watch this on the only website powered by Holy Spirit. It's there. Go take it, look for it yourself. Don't take the words of what could be a mentally diseased apostate. But in this episode, there's a video. There's also a Bible drama about Miriam and how she disrespected Jehovah's appointed servant of the time. You remember her brother Moses. And when she disrespects the guy at the top, Jehovah strikes her with leprosy. And I found myself thinking, I wonder what the modern day application is for today's Jehovah's Witness. I wonder what it could be. We're told in this video that Jehovah empowers us when we feel overwhelmed or disadvantaged. Of course, there's the typical rolling music meant to inspire us. And I found myself thinking, what does this video do for anyone that is truly overwhelmed or disadvantaged? What does it do for that lonely person who's sitting there single, who recently got in trouble for dating a non-believer? I could go on, we won't. And why I'd love to sing along to their horrific songs or dissect why Jehovah struck only Miriam with leprosy, but not her brother Aaron, who was also bad-mouthing Moses. Jehovah just punishes the woman. And again, I don't want to get too deep into this video drama. Please go watch it. But you remember Moses married a Cushite woman. Miriam and Aaron were very upset about that because was she really a believer? Marrying a non-believer. But there's also some interesting history surrounding racism in this whole story, as Cushites were thought to have darker skin. We could go on for an hour. Never mind. There's other things I want to tackle in this incredible episode of JW Broadcasting. And I'm here to tell you that this one got under my skin. The September JW Broadcasting is an episode filled with insulting and damaging information. King Jeff starts with a talk that is roughly 30 minutes long and makes claims so unbelievable. One can only wonder if the concept of self-awareness is now considered old light. Jeff Winder gives us a talk on the theme, Jehovah Protects the Disadvantaged. Brother Winder's soft-spoken style seems like the perfect selection to deliver a message that is nothing more than an outright collection of lies. I'm going to break this talk down here, quoting directly from the broadcast, but again, I always encourage you to go watch it. See it for yourself so you know that this is an honest take. And with that said, I do want to issue another trigger warning. This could get rocky. I'm walking into very emotional territory. That's my opinion after watching the broadcast. The governing body is about to tell us all about the care that disadvantaged ones receive from Jehovah, and of course, as you might imagine, by extension, the 9 of them. And those disadvantaged ones are going to benefit from this. From his opening comment, I was just sick. I was disgusted. Brother Winder starts the September 2024 JW broadcast with the following statement, quote, "In this month's program, we will learn Jehovah is there for us when life feels unfair," end quote. And immediately I groaned. I can't wait to hear how Jehovah is personally supporting that teenager who has no friends, can't go to a school dance, or even go to college as they grow up. I can't wait to hear what Jehovah's doing for those shunning their own flesh and blood. I can't wait to hear how getting sick, old, and going broke is all going to end any second now, and why Jesus has been watching all of us disadvantaged humans for about 110 years while he does nothing. I mean, Jeff, that all seems fair. Why would we ever feel like a God who laid a trap with a special tree for two naked people he created ever want us to feel this is all unfair? Why would he do that? It's not unfair to create a perfect invisible guy that can make animals talk, create wars and disease, and of course the dreaded birthday cake, and then send him to live in our house. What's unfair about that? I can't wait to hear from the opening comment how Jehovah is supporting us when life feels unfair. That is actually his opening comment. And from the beginning, I'm on the edge of my seat for this JW Broadcasting episode. Because you see, I got baptized into this religion that is a bastion of fairness, and I can't wait to hear how Jehovah's helping me navigate life. So as you watch this, Brother Winder starts with a series of questions for those desperately seeking spiritual food from the only Holy Spirit fast food drive-thru that a Jehovah's Witness is allowed to go through. He starts with these questions, quote, "Do you ever feel disadvantaged? Do you feel that perhaps because of unfavorable circumstances over which you have no control, you just don't have a fair chance in life? Maybe you feel that in the race for life, others seem to be able to run freely, but you have to run with a crutch." In this program, we're going to talk about a very endearing part of Jehovah's personality: his loving care for the disadvantaged. We will delve into his feelings for such ones, his respect for them, and his long history of caring for them. End quote. And as I mentioned at the outset, this is where I just want to call him a name, proclaim his stupidity, and end the episode. Am I alone in feeling that way? It's exhausting to be lied to your face. The entire talk is a shocking example of how really, let's call it what it is, mentally ill these men are. The delusion is staggering. But what is most heartbreaking is that there are Jehovah's Witnesses watching this broadcast just nodding along, hoping beyond hope for some encouragement or the reminder that the same God that didn't seem to care about the disadvantaged women and children he slaughtered in the promised land, or maybe that concubine he had chopped up into 12 pieces, or the slavery he allowed, or the firstborn Egyptian baby boys he had killed, whose only sin was wanting to eat, how that same God is going to help you today as your health is failing, or you wonder how your disfellowshipped son or daughter are doing because you can't talk to them. You see, from the outset, Jeffrey Winder wants you to know that Jehovah cares about your disadvantage. Just ask him. He asked a series of questions to open the conversation. And I got to tell you, just minutes into this broadcast, I had a few of my own. Things like this: why would a Jehovah's Witness ever feel disadvantaged? Is he serious? Why? His fellow kings on the governing body have assured me that that just isn't even possible. If a Jehovah's Witness ever feels disadvantaged, does that mean they really aren't a Jehovah's Witness? I mean, at the heart level, have they been baptized? Are they even a witness? How could they feel disadvantaged? From his opening comments, the confusion sets in. And you may think, well, what do you mean? Because the governing body has taught Jehovah's Witnesses the following. Of the Watchtower of 1999, October 1st, pages 6 and 7, the article says this, quote, although Christians weep because of world conditions, they are actually the happiest, they are actually the happiest people in the world. From the Kingdom Ministry of February 2002, paragraph 1, page 1, the happiest people on earth is the article, says this, quote, happy is the people whose God is Jehovah. Those words describe Jehovah's Witnesses as the happiest people on earth, end quote. The Kingdom Ministry of February 1994, page 5, paragraph 16, the governing body said this, quote, we are the happiest people on the face of the earth, knowing that on becoming approved, we will receive the crown of life, end quote. I could keep going. But that is a whole lot of happy. Something all of us saw at our local Kingdom Hall, a collection of the happiest people on earth, right? Am I right? Endless joy spilling over into the aisles, people launching themselves from minivans to spread some of their happiness to random strangers in the neighborhood, teenagers bouncing up and down with excitement about going to yet another meeting this week, and skipping having friends, school dances, sports, and parties, elderly people with permanent smiles across their faces running up and down the aisles of the Kingdom Hall, a congregation free of antidepressants or the horrible emotions of stifling same-sex attraction, sisters bubbling over with happiness because their opinions actually mattered in the congregation. I mean, folks, the happiest people on earth, and that happiness was and is palpable. I know we all miss it if you've left, because, people logically always leave the happiest people on earth, right? Dismiss common sense. But Jeff, when you ask us at the beginning of this broadcast if I've ever felt disadvantaged, I'm truly perplexed. How could I ever feel that way? How? Remember when you guys said this? From the Watchtower of 1993, May 1st, page 21, paragraph 24, quote, such loving labors have made the slave class the happiest people on earth today, and they have made millions of other people happy too, end quote. It now enters my top 5 favorite quotes from this organization. The Watchtower, 1993, May 1st, page 21, paragraph 24. The slave class, the governing body, are the happiest people on earth, and they've made millions of other people happy too. Did you know? We can end this JW broadcast right now. Just to end it, Jeff. It's simply not possible for a Jehovah's Witness to ever feel disadvantaged when they have you and your 8 fellow kings, the happiest men of all time, making the rest of us happy day in and day out. What more could a Jehovah's Witness ever need? We have you, Jeff. We have you. And every time one of you guys get on camera or are subpoenaed to a courtroom, I feel myself bursting with happiness, not disadvantage. You can't make this stuff up. Ladies and gentlemen, here we are. And while I can laugh and I can scream and I can rant, and I hope you are too, it's sobering to think that there are millions of good people watching this broadcast and just kind of nodding their heads, hanging on every word he is about to say, because, well, they do feel like life as a Jehovah's Witness is a lot like a shit sandwich, and they don't know why, because they're supposed to be so happy. But in fact, isn't it ironic they're actually listening to this or watching it, and they do feel disadvantaged. Huh. It's the primary tool of cults. A steady stream of mind-altering cognitive dissonance that keeps these people coming back for more. Because you see, they believe they're happy, and their lives depend on this stuff. So the introductory question is so puzzling to me. How could I or a Jehovah's Witness ever feel disadvantaged when I have you, Jeff, and your 8 friends? I'm among the happiest people on earth, and you keep making all of us happy too. But Jeff's genius continues in this episode. He says, quote, "To begin with, who are the disadvantaged?" End quote. Great question. Let's tackle it. Well, allow me to help. I think we've established it can't be Jehovah's Witnesses, right? You see, I've learned this from Jehovah's instruction manual, known as the Bible. At John 6:44 of the New World Translation, I'm told, quote, "No man can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him." End quote. Jeff's posed a question. Can't be a witness. You see, Jeff, I'm enjoying this talk. I'm here, but I'm not sure it applies to me. I have you and the rest of the governing body, so I'm in the elite club that you call the happiest people on earth. And as you can see, that is not an accident. Jehovah himself drew me to this organization. He personally made sure someone had a Bible study with me. I am far from disadvantaged. In fact, you might say I'm a bit of a ringer. I got personally chosen. For some reason, Jehovah was looking around and he sent another one of the happiest people on earth to my door to find me, and boom, advantage me. I'm in. He drew me. So at this point during the broadcast, this is a nice talk, so I'll listen. Please continue. I'm trying to figure out how I fit into this. I'm among the happiest people on earth. I'm with the happiest guys on earth, you and your 8 friends, and Jehovah personally made sure I got here, that I got to the party. Nonetheless, I'm eager to hear who these disadvantaged people are. Please tell us. Brother Winder continues in the video, quote, "When we speak about disadvantaged ones in this discussion, we are not talking about the inadequacies of the person, but rather of the unfortunate circumstances in life that one must contend with. Often a person inherits the situation through no fault of his own. Among such ones, the Bible specifically mentions widows, orphans, and foreign residents." End quote. Excellent. Excellent. I am so glad you confirmed it's not my personal inadequacies. It's not my big nose. It's not that I like to hit the snooze alarm. I'm feeling better already. This talk is, okay, I'm feeling good about this. Then Brother Winder takes us to the following scripture. Deuteronomy chapter 24 and verse 17 of the New World Translation, where he says, quote, "You must not pervert the judgment of the foreign resident or of the fatherless child, and you must not seize the garment of a widow as security for a loan." End quote. Oh no. What? He continues by quoting Psalms 10:14, which says that these people are unfortunate victims, and goes on to tell us that they can also be called, quote, lowly ones, not because they're less important, but because of their circumstances, end quote. We have ironically narrowed down who these disadvantaged ones are that he's talking about, that apparently reside among the happiest people on earth. They include widows. They include fatherless children. We're going to assume motherless is also a disadvantage, or a foreign person. Got it. And immediately upon watching and listening, my brain fires into overdrive. None of these people asked for their personal circumstances, but they did find Jehovah's Witnesses who are going to help them, right? Jehovah's Witnesses are going to help the disadvantaged, right? We'll come back to that. Brother Winder continues in the video, quote, "How does Jehovah feel about such ones?" We really see a beautiful aspect of Jehovah's personality here. His compassion and empathy in action. Since a widow doesn't have a husband to care for her, an orphan doesn't have parents to provide for and protect him, and a foreigner has no advocate, Jehovah steps in and fills those roles personally. Jehovah himself assumes the responsibility left vacated. He becomes the father. He becomes the protector. End quote. And this is where I get pissed off. There are a million different things that we could take this, a million different paths, a million different things I could comment on. But I'm just going to say it right here, as I mentioned at the outset. Sometimes I get so tired of this stuff. King Winder is insulting our intelligence. He has zero self-awareness or education regarding his own organization. The one Jehovah gave him, put him in charge of with 8 other guys to serve the rest of us. I would love to go deeper on Jehovah's personality, as Brother Winder speaks of here, but I'll just say, see a past episode where I give Jehovah a personality test. It's a real episode, did it months ago. But let's just say I'm watching this talk, and I got to tell you, it's not lost on me that this same God that becomes the protector, that steps in, that goes into action, that becomes the Father, is the same Jehovah that he had recorded so we could read it, called the Bible, that shares with us that he has killed lots, and I mean lots, of innocent babies. He's allowed female virgins to be taken captive as sex slaves. He has completely disappeared in moments of crisis. I could keep going. But well, in 2024, he demands that elders dissolve families if someone doesn't disagree with the 9 kings in New York. We all get it. So when you start talking about his compassion and his empathy for the disadvantaged, it's difficult to confirm with the women and children he drowned at the flood. I can't seem to pick up the phone and call them. But somebody can ask Noah about it in the future, right? And there he is, he snuck in. That's but one example, folks, where he commanded the judges, Joshua and a whole bunch of others, to go through and people camping on his real estate slaughter everything that moved. The Bible endorses slavery. It has women being chopped up into pieces. Jehovah's compassionate? He springs to action? He fills the vacated void, as Jeff said? Does he now? When a person is told they're removed from the congregation and can no longer speak to their own parents or family, Jeff, you do realize that Jehovah in that move, he just actually created an orphan. Is that his compassion in action, as you just said? When he disciplines a single sister for dating someone who isn't a Jehovah's Witness and she remains single for the rest of her life, how does that compare to this whole he cares for widows thing? You see, when you're a king for the happiest people on earth, you simply don't even think about or consider obvious truths. You got a message to deliver, and I'll be damned he's going to deliver it. When you represent Jehovah, you get to define what compassion and empathy in action look like. And for the governing body, that includes getting all warm and fuzzy by themselves, breaking up families. In other words, literally creating widows and orphans. Literally creating them. You simply can't make this stuff up. And you stare at him on this video wondering if anything in his brain is working. He's on camera saying this stuff to our face about disadvantaged ones, even as he creates disadvantaged ones. But what he highlights next is both, the words are tough, it's both infuriating and disgusting. He takes us to the following verses of the Bible, back to his words, quote, from Exodus 22, 20 through 24 of the New World Translation. He says this, quote, you must not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If you afflict him at all so that he cries out to me, I will unfailingly hear his outcry, and my anger will blaze, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives will become widows, and your children will be fatherless. End quote. Incredible. Exodus 22, 22 through 24. Despite those words allegedly being inspired, we simply can't grasp them without the governing body's help. We just don't understand what he said there, right? There was a lot of wiggle room. What does it mean? Well, Jeff's going to help us. He continues with saying, quote, regarding these verses, the Watchtower said, end quote. Plainly stated in the Bible, Jeff's going to explain what it means. Because when reading directly from the book Jehovah wrote, he's kind of wishy-washy and he needs Jeff to help him out. So Jeff then quotes the Watchtower of April 1st, 2009, page 31, which says this, quote, notice that Jehovah did not leave it up to the human judges in Israel to enforce the law. End quote for a moment. Anybody see a problem? Anybody? I'm going to go back to the beginning. Quote, and Jeff is quoting this, folks. Quote, notice that Jehovah did not leave it up to the human judges in Israel to enforce the law. You mean like he does now? Back to the quote, God himself would execute judgment upon anyone who took advantage of a defenseless child. End quote. And Brother Winder follows up that Watchtower quote with this comment, quote, this is how personally Jehovah takes the care of lowly disadvantaged ones. They become his responsibility. They come under his protection. Jehovah personally makes up for any disadvantage they may have. End quote. And I'm triggered. You've been warned. I'm about to go off the rails. This is so deeply insulting that one has to wonder what the point of it all is. Are they trolling us at this point? Is he kidding? Are they trying to see who's paying attention? Are they delusional? Are they deeply mentally ill? King Winder is here looking Jehovah's Witnesses and the world in the eye and teaching us from not only the Bible, but from the Watchtower's comment on it, that if a child cries out to Jehovah, a child cries out to him, Jehovah himself will, quote, unfailingly hear that child because it's deeply personal to him, that his anger will blaze, and because Jehovah really likes swords, he will take action to protect any child. slaughtering any man that hurts a child. Oh, and for good measure, and the very definition of irony, he thereby, that being Jehovah, himself creates another widow and another fatherless boy in the process. Did I miss anything? It's right there in the Bible. Common sense and reality be damned among the happiest people on earth. Despite the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses lying to the world about child safety in their organization, and despite secular proof available to anyone, anytime, online, that the org these guys lead is currently paying millions and millions and millions of dollars to child abuse victims, and despite every congregation in the state of Pennsylvania being under legal investigation at this very moment regarding harm to their children, and I could keep going, and despite this and that and the other, so many more things I can mention, King Jeffrey Winder was rolled out on a stage. The studio lights were adjusted, the cameras were turned on, and he is telling us that Jehovah gets personally involved in the protection of children. That he will destroy anyone that hurts a child. That they are, quote, his responsibility. And that God himself makes up for any disadvantage they may have. You literally can't make this stuff up with these guys. And you could see why it's exhausting to talk about. It's stunning. So with these bold claims by King Winder, the only guy in this whole video and this whole experience that has a direct line to heaven, I have a question. Has anyone, and I do mean anyone, drop me a DM or a note, has anyone seen Jehovah? Anybody know where he is? I am assured in this broadcast that he assumes the role of protector when a child so much screams out to him, that he takes it very personal. And according to Jeff, quote, Jehovah personally makes up for any disadvantage they may have, end quote. So my question to anyone listening, visible or invisible, thanks for being here. If you're listening in from heaven or the angelic realm, where is Jehovah? Anyone? Did he not hear the 1,800 children in Australia that were harmed and uncovered by the court system? Or how about the one disabled girl in the affidavit in Pennsylvania that was harmed, that's the word I'm going to use, quote, 50 to 75 times between 7 and 12 years old, according to the district attorney of Pennsylvania? Where was Jehovah? Was he busy? Did he have his earbuds in? Couldn't hear the cries? I mean, Jeff, since your organization is the one allowing these things to happen, does Jehovah just look the other way with his own organization and the men inside it that are harming children? You want to talk about the disadvantaged? In summary, Brother Winder is giving a 30-plus minute talk to remind us that Jehovah takes it all so personal, and he hears all the cries for help. But what the hell does he do about the cries? We are left to think, and he's stating here that apparently Jehovah's response is, yeah, I hear all the cries for help. And then nothing? He just keeps watching? Welcome to the 2024 September JW broadcast, hosted by King Jeffrey Winder, one of the 9 happiest men on earth, leading the happiest people on earth. I'm exhausted. This is nothing short of disgusting. how any one of these men could get on camera and make any claim that Jehovah is personally seeing to the safety of children in this organization when he is very likely making these claims in this broadcast on camera and audio to, I don't know, wounded children, including victims that are now grown adults that are still associating with Jehovah's Witnesses. How in the world does this man sleep? I simply don't have words for this. It's so incredibly disturbing. It's horrific on any and every level. I'm stunned that not one of these men on that body, these would-be kings, kind of has a moment where they speak up and say, God, I got to tell you guys, this might not be a good idea to comment that Jehovah hears cries and he protects children among Jehovah's Witnesses. Why don't we just leave this one alone and move on? I can give you millions of reasons, millions of dollars worth of reasons that it just isn't true. And not one person in that room speaks up. No one. Does anyone give 5 seconds of thought, really quieting your mind, to realize how evil this is? But I've said enough about Jehovah himself. Simply put, I'll sum it up with this. Where is he? And where is the proof that he personally protects children? What children? Whose children? Where? Because according to a United Nations report from 2008, 16 or so years ago, quote, each day, 25,000 people, including more than 10,000 children, die from hunger and related causes, end quote. Look, I guess all these precious kids need to cry out a little louder. Maybe they need to cry louder. They just haven't gotten Jehovah's attention. But when you're the king of the happiest people on earth, ironically discussing the disadvantaged, you see, you double down. And so Jeffrey Winder continues in this video, in this broadcast, and he starts by reading Proverbs 19:17 of the New World Translation, which says, quote, the one showing favor to the lowly is lending to Jehovah, and he will repay him for what he does, end quote. And then he says, quote, let's walk through the process that this verse describes, end quote. Oh boy. What follows is complete insanity, and so deeply insulting and upsetting that I've had to watch and rewatch it because I can't believe this is going on. Quote, Brother Winder, quote, first, we assist the lowly, or we show favor to them in some way. We help them in a practical way. We encourage them. End quote. And are you ready for it? He says, quote, and we make sure they get justice, end quote. We make sure they get justice. Folks, I know this must be triggering for many good people out there, innocent victims of so many things that could be considered a disadvantage, but certainly fall under abuse or harm. This organization would rather pay millions and millions of dollars to keep crimes inside their kingdom halls quiet. This organization that pays millions and millions of dollars just rolled out one of their leaders claiming, quote, we make sure that disadvantaged ones get justice. If you're a Jehovah's Witness listening, you should now ignore the tens of millions of dollars they spend literally fighting victims of abuse who are seeking justice. Even as the criminal, the person that harmed them, continues to sit in their kingdom halls. And parents don't even know that they're there because no one tells them. Justice? I'm so at risk of jumping the shark. I got to tell you, bear with me. I'm off kilter this episode. Please, for those people that are victims, I have to say this here. Please know that you're loved. Please know that your pain is valid. And since it's apparently very personal for Jehovah, please, please don't ever walk away from the horrible things you've endured and wonder what is wrong with you, since you've never gotten justice. Whether you've survived abuse, been shunned by your family, lost years of your life, whatever it might be that you would consider a disadvantage, and for those even not with us who have lost their lives obeying these men, please know none of it is you. These are nothing more than evil lies in this JW broadcast. There is never any justice inside Jehovah's Witnesses, no matter how nicely he says it on camera. There is never justice, ever. So many people dealing with the pain and the scars and the unbelievable things that they have to endure hour to hour because of this organization. Because Jehovah's personally involved? Because we're all so happy? Because you'll get justice here? It's never going to happen. They inflict pain. But Jeff Winder continues. And for anyone free of their mind control, you will quickly identify what this whole talk is really about. They always sneak it in if you're paying attention. He says this, quote, "As we discussed, Jehovah has assumed the responsibility to care for these disadvantaged ones. So when we step in and assist, Jehovah views this as if we are giving to him, assisting him with his responsibility. But Jehovah doesn't view it as a gift or a payment, but as a loan. But what's the difference between a gift or a loan? A loan must be repaid. Imagine when we assist the disadvantaged, Jehovah actually views himself as indebted to us lowly humans." End quote. What in the hell is going on? Wrap your mind around all of this. In what seems like a mundane, softly spoken, polished episode of JW Broadcasting, I am seeing just an incredibly evil 30 plus minutes from this guy. Go ahead, hit the pause button, and silently contemplate what this guy just said. How about a few of my thoughts? It seems obvious that despite Brother Winder's claim that Jehovah takes care of disadvantaged ones and he makes it all very personal, that he's oddly absent and he's missed helping more than a few precious souls over the centuries. Is it really that personal for Jehovah? But I'm here trying to wrap my head around Jehovah, the Creator, needing my help with anything. And why would he want me to take care of his responsibilities? And when I give to other people because I care about them, it isn't a gift, Jeff. It's a loan? Is Jehovah keeping track of all the people he owes on earth for showing kindness to others, apparently on his behalf? Dear Brother Winder, is this entire talk about disadvantaged people something that Jehovah is going to repay the governing body for, despite them teaching love your neighbor in the Bible? I have so many questions because of the absurdity of this talk. We simply don't have time to cover them all. I'm only a few minutes in. I'm keeping myself in check. But you will note that none of us have these questions when we are sitting there listening to this BS until something triggers us to wake up to what he's saying. This guy is simply lying to our faces. He's not only distorting reality for us here on this earth, he's distorting the entire concept of Jehovah God himself. I want to go back to this idea that Jehovah is indebted to us. What? Is he charging interest? Can I charge interest? What is he repaying me with? What is Jehovah repaying my loan of being kind to a disadvantaged one with? What's the payment? Is it an extra day of everlasting life? Or do I get seconds of salad in paradise? Do I get an extra dolphin? What? I can read the Bible, and I thought he gave us Jesus, who died for us to ransom us back. If anything, I thought I owed him. I thought I owed him. But now, according to this broadcast, just being kind to someone in trouble is a loan to Jehovah. Do you see what happens when you make everything in this life transactional? When giving out of kindness isn't enough, and it never is with Jehovah's Witnesses. Last I checked, Jesus said loving your neighbor should come from the heart, and he neglected to mention that it was a transactional loan, a loan to his father Jehovah. Did anyone else miss that in the Golden Rule? He said this was so important that it was one of only 2 rules that every Christian should practice daily. But that wasn't my only thought regarding Jehovah taking out loans he has to repay me. I just can't. This is so unreal. How about, I don't know, Jehovah's words on what he owes us? Are you interested in what Jehovah has to say about what he owes us? How about Romans chapter 11, verses 34 through 36 of the New World Translation, where it says, quote, "For who has come to know Jehovah's mind? Or who has become his advisor? Or who has first given to him so that he must be repaid to him? Because from him and by him and for him are all things." End quote. Gee, Jeff, when did Jehovah start owing us stuff? Is this new light? I know. I got your reference to Proverbs 19:17 a few minutes earlier, but it looks like the Apostle Paul might have gotten new light by the time he wrote Romans, because he says here that Jehovah owes us nothing. Isn't the Bible interesting? I could keep going. But ladies and gentlemen, the 9 men in upstate New York whose whole existence is to teach us and save our lives, here they are, on camera. The level of stupidity and dishonesty that pours out of these men's mouths is sometimes truly staggering. 15 years after I walked away from them. It's staggering, this entire talk. But Jeff isn't even close to done. He continues by saying this, quote, "Jehovah will repay that debt with favors and blessings. Without a doubt, Jehovah feels strongly about the care of disadvantaged ones." End quote. Wow. Jehovah owes you and me just for being kind. He then goes on to show us all that Jehovah shows how concerned he is with disadvantaged people, including children, and he is going to show us proof of this by using examples from ancient Israel, including the following scripture expounding on his thoughts about loans. From Exodus 22, verses 26 through 27 of the New World Translation, Jeff reads the following, quote, "If you seize the garment of your fellow man as security for a loan, you are to return it to him by sunset, for it is his only covering, his clothing to cover his body. In what will he lie down to sleep? When he cries out to me, I will certainly hear, for I am compassionate. End quote. Thank you, Jeff, for this scripture. You see, folks, Brother Jeffrey Winder wants you to know that Jehovah is very concerned with people's pajamas. That is someone who doesn't return an Israelite their clothes by bedtime. That person's going to cry out to them. I guess they're going to be buck naked. I don't know. And Jehovah will immediately show compassion, according to Exodus 22. But apparently, he cannot be bothered with the safety of kids. Unless, of course, we're loaning them our pajamas. Then Jehovah takes it very personal. I want to laugh, but in reality, I want to punch somebody. This is unbelievable. The governing body is in rare form in this broadcast. He goes on to try to further land this point home. He then shows us what he calls a further stipulation for widows. And let's just say Jeff seems to be missing some critical details with this one. He says, quote, you must not pervert the judgment of the foreign resident or of the fatherless child, and you must not seize the garment of a widow as security for a loan. He then says in his own comments after quoting the Bible, Jehovah evidently wanted to eliminate any chance she was left overnight without her garment to keep her warm. Isn't that beautiful? Don't we see Jehovah's special love and care for disadvantaged ones in laws like this? End quote. I'd love to go on and on about perverting judgment with kids, but we all know how I feel about it. I even get people complaining to me about it, that it's disingenuous, but I favor kids. You get the point. And I'd love to explore the obvious, which is this. If the creator of all things is so concerned about disadvantaged ones, as proven by people keeping their pajamas, why the hell doesn't he help people in real danger in 2024? Let's just make it simple. Is it because I'm not an Israelite? Is it because I'm not a widow? Is it because my crippling depression isn't worth his attention? Or are you having trouble finding compassionate loan sharks to care for your responsibilities here on the earth by sending them to be kind to me? What is it? What is it? But how about the fact that you can secure a loan by taking people's pajamas, but you can't do the same if that person is a widow? Only if she's a widow. Did Jehovah just favor women for a moment? Wait a minute. In the Old Testament, is this happening? Shout out to the ladies who face a steady stream of misogyny during their time among the happiest people on earth. Jehovah says you get to keep your pajamas. Don't use them as a loan. If you just lose everything, including, of course, your husband or a mate, well, Jehovah and his organization will make sure you have your pajamas. And to quote Jeff, isn't that beautiful? I would love to say I'm making this up. Go watch it. Use in this talk to repeat that Jehovah gets personally involved. He really lands that point home. Jehovah's personally watching each and every one of you and your cries for help. Women, children, widows, orphans, everybody. He gets involved, even with poor people. He goes on this whole rant about sacrifices, about Israelites that couldn't afford animal sacrifices, never realizing, well, Jehovah told them they had to do it. What were they supposed to do? Blah, 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 blah. He seems to be working very hard in this talk to almost convince himself at times, like he's talking to himself. I can speak to that because I do it to myself. I'm guilty. But then governing body Winder King Jeff says this, quote, couldn't we also include in this group wives who are neglected or abused by their husbands? Verbally, emotionally, or physically. Such ones don't have the normal protection expected of a husband. Couldn't we include children of single parents, including those with parents that are addicted to alcohol or drugs or suffering from debilitating depression? End quote. What? Wow. We should be kind to those people. But listen, folks, I have entire episodes of this show on abuses administered in the marriage arrangement among Jehovah's Witnesses. And I don't think anyone wants to review that it's Jeffrey and his other 8 buddies that literally encourage a woman to not divorce an abusive mate. You want us to include them in being kind to the disadvantaged? But the references are endless, Jeff, as are the real world tragedies of following your advice to never get a divorce from someone who's abusing you. So if you're keeping track at home, this talk, all of it, who's all about helping disadvantaged ones, that's the theme, it also includes, and he just kind of slips it under the radar, those enduring abuse at the hands of a mate Jeff and his guys will encourage them to stay with because divorce is so much more sinful than taking a beating on the regular. There's experiences in their Watchtower library of women proudly propped up for enduring abuse. Abuse they told them to endure. Would you like an example? Gotta breathe. Keep Yourself in God's Love, 2008, pages 219 to 221, includes this comment from the governing body, quote, "What forms a scriptural basis for divorce? Extreme physical abuse. An abusive spouse may act so violently that the abused mate's health and even life are in danger. If the abusive spouse is a Christian, congregation elders should investigate the charges. Fits of anger and a practice of violent behavior are grounds for disfellowshipping." End quote. That's it. That's it, Jeff. Fantastic. Someone is being physically abused, and we're going to look the other way if you divorce them, to save your very life. Oh, but be assured they're going to get in big trouble with us. We may even remove them from the congregation. We used to call it disfellowshipping. We'll take care of that. We'll punish them. Isn't that great? But your immediate safety? Not mentioned there. Sorry, we forgot to comment on that because according to this talk about the disadvantage, we're just going to include you at the next congregation picnic, for example. And we'll let you sing some kingdom songs with us. And we'll encourage you to keep handing out our books on the weekend. And by the way, the next coffee break, it's on me. We'll be helping the disadvantaged. And it's a loan that Jehovah will have to repay me for. Sorry about the beatings you're taking at home. I just can't say enough about how insane the September 2024 JW broadcast truly is. But we're not done. Brother Winter goes on to ask, quote, "Have you experienced Jehovah's loving care in your situation? Have you come across a scripture or an article in the publications that gave you just what you needed when you needed it? Have you seen Jehovah's care through a thoughtful word or timely practical help from one of your brothers or sisters in the congregation? You are not alone. That is Jehovah residing with you. He is reviving your heart. And we just love him for it, don't we?" End quote. You may be a disadvantaged one, dealing with abuse or loneliness or any other number of things. And the proof that Jehovah loves you and is getting, quote, personally involved and is, quote, taking action and is, quote, hearing your cries in your situation, well, the proof of that can be found by picking up a Watchtower magazine and them telling you Jehovah sees your situation and he is personally involved and he is taking action and he hears your cries. And when the situation continues and there is no justice, I don't know if you know this, but Jehovah will again, he takes it very personal. He takes action and he hears your cries and he gets involved by you getting in your car and coming to the Kingdom Hall and hearing a talk again about how Jehovah is taking this all very personal and how he sees your pain and he hears your cries and he is taking action and he is personally involved. On and on and on it goes. We just love Jehovah and his favorite guys for all this, don't we? Don't we just love them for this, as he asked? Because they put me firmly among the happiest people on earth, led by the happiest 9 guys on earth, the faithful slave, on what is the happiest merry-go-round, otherwise known as circular reasoning. And a Jehovah's Witness can't stop spinning. Stating these things, telling them that they should be happy, planting the thought in their head. Don't we love Jehovah for this? He's so involved. He hears your cries. He takes action. It's his responsibility. He owes me. I got a loan out with God that he's going to repay me. What that is, we don't know. He says he doesn't do. None of it matters. Listen to what Brother Winder says. You're a disadvantaged one, and we're helping you. Round and round on the merry-go-round. And I got to tell you, I'm exhausted. This talk continues for another roughly 15 more minutes, and well, I quit. I'm done. I mentioned at the outset that at times I just can't muster the energy to talk about these guys. The days I have the energy, I try to think about just one precious soul who is trapped in their world. And that feeling they must have in their stomach because their brain is telling them, God, something's wrong. And just about the time their brain almost breaks free from their clutches, it's time for the music video on JW Broadcasting. A music video, in this case, featuring a sister whose husband leaves her and their only son, apparently. Go watch it. And did you know she's in absolute dismay? No one knows why he's leaving. No one knows what she's endured, but she's a disadvantaged one. And wouldn't you know it, with the music just booming along, the video features her finding all the answers from Jehovah's personal action found in their publications and the Bible. And even as the video shows her standing in front of a book cart with her son. And boom, a Jehovah's Witness almost breaking free gets another spin on the merry-go-round. And I just want to ask everyone, as you can tell, this is one of those. Would you agree that it's truly difficult some days to remember what it was like to be captive to these guys? Even 15 years later, and as I closed down watching this video twice because I couldn't believe what I was hearing and seeing, there are times I still get really overwhelmed with anger. And I have recent JWs who've left that contact me weekly asking me how to deal with the anger. And this JW Broadcasting episode did serve a purpose for me. Thank you, Brother Winder. It reminded me that the scars ex-J-dubs and those trapped, that the scars they have are real. And I got to tell you, I'm speechless. Closing this out, I'm reminded of the philosopher Baruch Spinoza, who said the following, quote, "The world would be happier if men had the same capacity to be silent that they have to speak." End quote. You want to help the disadvantaged ones, Jeffrey Winder, and your 8 best friends up in upstate New York? Here's how you can do it. Just shut the hell up and go away. Thanks for joining me this week. Wherever you may be, get outside, take a deep breath, and be well.